Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another stacked show, Rob. Just an incredible show. There aren't words for how stacked this show is. What do we got?
We do have a really great show today. We have Senator Rand Paul joining us to discuss natural immunity against COVID-19, masks, the controversy surrounding Washington, D.C.'s Big Board restaurant, which was shuttered for not enforcing the mandates. Then Jennifer Holdsworth-Karp and Rachel Bovard will also join us to discuss the Supreme Court's ruling on redistricting. And reporter Kim Ives gives us an update on the state of Haiti now that Prime Minister Ariel Henry's term has concluded.
His fake term, we would add. But right now, we'd like to turn to the Biden administration's first cabinet-level departure. This is the problem with elevating everybody to a cabinet level. When one of them leaves, you've got a cabinet-level departure. So Biden's top science advisor, Eric Lander, resigned yesterday after Politico reported an internal investigation found that he violated the White House's workplace policy. The 2-month investigation, prompted by workplace complaints, found credible evidence that Lander was bullying staffers, including his former general counsel. Lander, the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, had been touted as a key player in the administration's pandemic response. However, Lander was to refrain from working on COVID vaccine matters after financial disclosure paperwork showed he owned between $500,000 to $1 million worth of stock in BioNTech, which of course produces Pfizer's vaccines. The White House rebuked Lander over his interactions with his staff, but initially signaled Monday that he would be allowed to remain on the job. So I was at the White House press corps briefing yesterday. I was going to try to ask them how long or how many millions of Afghans they plan to starve by seizing Afghan money. I wasn't able to get a question in. I'll try again today, try again tomorrow. But it seemed about half of the questions were about Ed Lander, because I think it was the thing that journalists love, particularly Washington journalists. Biden said a thing, and the thing Biden said was, if somebody abuses staff and is rude to staff, is a bad boss, I will fire them on the spot, no ifs, ands, or buts. Investigation, guy mismanages the staff, not fired on the spot. And so they've got this contradiction between a quote and it was just reporter after reporter after reporter. Jen, I'd like to read to you what Biden said. Here's what he said. He didn't fire. And Jen would say, I appreciate that question. I understand the question. It was because of the processes that we put into place that we launched this investigation. And the result from the process will be that this will never happen again. And next person. Let me read to you what he said in January, fired on the spot. And so we can only imagine what happened after that press briefing. But we do know that hours later, he's gone.
Yeah.
So you spend that entire press briefing kind of defending the decision, and then a couple hours later.
So the details here, as far as I can tell, are not very interesting, frankly.
It's not sexual harassment. It's not that level of abuse. What it is bullying, yelling at staff, treating people in a cruel way behind closed doors. Just being a jerk and a bad boss is what it sounded. That's what the investigation found. Alex Thompson at Politico reported that it had been concluded in December, and it didn't become public until Politico reported on it. And so, but yes, that's right. It was bad boss stuff, like yelling at people.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not feeling that so much, right?
This whole Gen Z, millennial, younger people have a very
in Afghanistan, right?
Well, compared to a genocide. Well, but it's treated like it's genocide. The whole there's periodically this person's really mean to their staff or whatever, says anonymous person on the staff who was feeling bad that day. It's a lot of feelings. I don't know. Maybe he's worse than that, but again, we don't really know because there weren't very specific details. I want people resigning from top medical posts in the administration because
for owning
they screwed up
in BioNTech stock.
Sure, having stocks they shouldn't have, for screwing up testing, for the vaccines taking longer than they should have, for requiring mandates, all right. The policy aspect of it. But he was mean to his staff. All right, fine.
It goes back to the Cuomo situation that we were talking about yesterday.
Yeah,
it would be nice for somebody to face actual consequences for putting people in harm's way in nursing homes, leading to deaths, immunizing those nursing homes.
Authorizing research conducted in China in unsafe lab conditions
for example,
that may have caused this pandemic and, if not, could cause the next one.
Good thing
Just
that
saying.
good thing that Fauci is not rude to his subordinates.
No, very collegial, very collegial. Yeah. That's what matters. Anyway, the review was completed weeks ago, but it was confirmed Lander only apologized after Politico broke the story. The investigation found, as we just described, credible evidence, multiple women having complained to other staff about negative interactions with Dr. Lander, where he spoke to them in a demeaning or abrasive way in front of staff. His confirmation to his role was initially delayed for months as senators sought more information about meetings he'd had with Jeffrey Epstein.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. Epstein met with everyone on the face of the earth. Lander also was criticized for downplaying the contributions of 2 Nobel Prize-winning female scientists. Well,
the Epstein stuff. All right, how about we do root out all the Epstein people? Then then there'd be no government. There'd be no elite. Yeah.
Now you're really speaking my language, Ryan.
There you go.
Step 1, fire everyone. Step 2, glorious libertarian paradise.
And it is important. So I got thrust into a boss position pretty early in my career because I started at the Huffington Post after Politico, actually, and there was nobody else. So somebody had to run this very small bureau, and so I do very much appreciate the importance of being a good boss, being a good mentor, treating people with dignity and respect. That said, I agree that it gets blown so wildly out of proportion relative to things that are affecting billions of people, or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people. It is important that the 144 staff at the Office of Science and Technology Policy, have a good boss. That is important. It is not the most important thing going on in the world right now.
Exactly. I've never been in.
He's gone.
I've never been in a managing role. Never will be. I think I'd be
a good boss.
No, I think I'd be a really bad boss.
No, you think so?
I think I'd be a truly terrible boss. My job, write and say things.
What would be the worst thing that you would do to people?
I'm not organized. I'm not inspiring. I would forget people's names.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, it's not good. Not good.
Good stuff.
Well, we also want to tell you about some big news out of Silicon Valley. Early Facebook investor and billionaire Peter Thiel has stepped down from the social media company's board. This is big news. It's rumored he will be focusing on efforts on Donald Trump's campaign and the 2022 midterms, helping to elect kind of Trump philosophy candidates. He's backed J.D. Vance, who the author of Hillbilly Elegy, who's running for the Ohio Senate seat. He's supporting
the guy in Arizona.
Yeah, the guy in Masters, Blake Masters, who is a close friend of Peter Thiel's, co-author of his book 0 to 1.
He's been on this show.
Yeah, he's been on the show. So this is big. Peter Thiel was. Everybody who saw The Social Network knows the story, right? Was the early investor of Facebook. Sean Parker of Napster helped set that up, and has been, in an interesting place as Facebook has taken this very large role in at least how we construct what the political influence narrative is, with, coming out of 2016, everyone on the liberal side saying this is Mark Zuckerberg's fault that Trump is president.
After Putin.
Right. Putin and Trump, Putin and Mark Zuckerberg bear most
Trump deserves a little responsibility for that. If he hadn't run, he wouldn't.
If he hadn't run, he hadn't. Yeah, well, we won't even get into Jeff Zucker's responsibility.
That's true.
Of NBC. But, and Peter Thiel being, someone behind the scenes at this company who is a Republican, who is a conservative and a supporter of Donald Trump, although I think he kind of sat out the re-election, from what I understand, or he didn't think Trump was capable of winning again. So, and now then Facebook becomes this major source of anger of really both sides, but of conservatives saying, no, it's biased against conservatives, the misinformation, the silencing, and Peter Thiel, taking this role behind the scenes, I think urging, from what we understand, again, I'm just kind of extrapolating from the reporting, urging Zuckerberg, not to go to the maximum, 10 out of 10, ban, censor, destroy every conservative. You'll lose your credibility. This is part of your audience. These demands are ridiculous.
You've already lost all the liberals.
Right.
So what are you going to do?
So I think this is another case where, like with Twitter, with Jack Dorsey stepping aside and the new guy filling his shoes, where I could see Thiel no longer being involved in Facebook anymore, being very bad for diversity of thought, or whatever, too much moderation, that kind of thing. because he could have been a voice in Mark's ear, urging kind of restraint, which probably sounds ridiculous to a lot of people who are saying, Facebook is so censoring everything. It can always get worse, and I think it might.
Right. For people who think that, go look at the top 10.
I tweeted that the other day. Dan Bongino. Yeah.
The Bongino report.
So some people, when I share that, so what we're talking about is, it's funny when conservatives say Facebook is biased against conservatives, and then you see what the top 10 articles are at any one time, and Dan Bongino is by far the most successful.
A bunch of Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, Daily Caller, Breitbart, Tucker Carlson, Rant, etc. And now, some on the right will have come back to me and try to say, well, that's a misleading snapshot, the way it's being calculated and counted. So I have done some additional reporting on that. I would say it's slightly misleading without being inaccurate in any sense. It is a good snapshot. It might not be totally true. It's counting engagement. So it's including people who are sharing Dan Bongino rants because they hate them, because they're liberals and they're saying this guy sucks. It's not counting. It's only counting pieces of content that would take you elsewhere on to some other site. So there's kind of a technical thing about it, but it still shows how well certain right-wing figures are doing on Facebook. Facebook has been a very powerful, and I think that's a good thing, by the way. This is my argument to conservatives who are like, no, we need to break up and destroy Facebook. Like, are you kidding? This has been the most powerful platform.
This is your golden goose.
This is the engine of non-liberal speech, which is why liberals want to destroy it, which is why Elizabeth Warren wants to destroy it, which is why Joe Biden wants to destroy it, which is why the New York Times wants to destroy it. Why do you want to destroy it? It doesn't make any sense.
I think liberals would love if that top 10 was New York Times, NPR, Pod Save America, just the run through of their media infrastructure, but it's not. So, they would eat that up. Do you think that Thiel felt is feeling any pressure from Musk getting subpoenas?
I have no
around
idea.
This thing.
I have absolutely no idea.
Poor Thiel stepping down from the board like a week or two after Facebook loses some massive 30% of its. Because when Facebook loses like 30% of its value, people like Thiel and Zuckerberg, who have a lot of their wealth tied up in it, their wealth drops just staggering billions. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to they can't get an appetizer at dinner. They can, they're doing okay.
Right.
But it's wild the amount of money that anybody who was deeply invested in Facebook lost recently. And he probably knew he was leaving. He's like, oh man. There goes $10 billion out the door.
I think it'll also be interesting to see. So he wants to have a more
that's two Senate races.
A more direct political influence. I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I remember 10 and 15 years ago when, for instance, the Koch brothers wanted to have more influence on the Republican Party, push it more in their direction, help to elect Republicans that were in their mold of, honestly, sort of a mold that's closer to my own political views of socially moderate,
Paul Ryan,
restrained, but economically conservative, low tax, low regulation people. And that project mostly failed. Today, the Republican Party is very successful and is as further from their ideology than it was when they started being involved.
They managed to get Paul Ryan to be Speaker of the House, to be vice president on the vice presidential ticket, but that was kind of their high water mark.
Yeah, then Donald Trump did everything the opposite of what they wanted, and won, and holds total power over the party still.
And contempt for them.
But
he will still give them whatever they want.
So we'll see if it goes better for Thiel. That's what I'm wondering.
Best of luck to
Best
Mr.
of luck.
Thiel.
We'll tell you what's on our radars coming up next.